The unsolved murder of the Dardeen family. In the quiet town of Ina, where the only stoplight blinks at the intersection of Main and 3rd Street and the best meal in town can be found at Uncle Joe's, a tragedy struck that still haunts its residents to this day. The Dardeen family, consisting of Keith, Elaine, their 3-year-old son Peter, and a baby to be born, lived a peaceful life in their mobile home on the outskirts of the town. Keith worked at the water treatment plant while Elaine played piano at the local Baptist church. But one day, the tranquil town was shattered by the brutal murder of the entire family. Nearly 3 decades have passed, and the case remains unsolved, shrouded in mystery and unanswered questions. Join us as we delve into the case of the unsolved murder of the Dardeen family. Keith expressed worry and expressed a desire to relocate to his family, who lived far away in Mount Carmel. The rural area where Keith lived had become dangerous due to a high number of murders in the previous 2 years. So he put his trailer up for sale. Joanne Dardeen recently visited her son and Elaine for the weekend. She said, "It was odd. We'd usually end up talking about murders. I know you might think that's crazy." Joanne felt that Keith was interested in many murder cases and their outcomes. I noticed that he seemed worried about something, but she couldn't figure out what it was. He told her he would move by January, and then came November 17th, 1987. Keith went missing and his family couldn't get in touch with him. His parents then informed the authorities and went to his trailer with a key to check on him. Police met them at the scene. Keith's car was missing, and they went inside. What they found was indescribable. Elaine was sexually mutilated and bludgeoned to death with a baseball bat, as was her son, Peter. Baby Casey, due in 2 months, arrived during the beatings, and she too was beaten to death. There was no sign of Keith. Police immediately began searching the trailer. No forced entry. Nothing was missing. Cash and jewelry were laying in the open. The 3 victims were found in their beds, seemingly tucked in for the night. The police and family asked, where was Keith? A search was launched for Keith, and he was considered the main suspect in the case. Keith's lifelong friend, Kevin Davies, who was living in Colorado when police tracked him down, said, "When they first came to me and said they were looking for him because Keith was responsible for Elaine's death, I disagreed completely with the assumption. That's not even a possibility." Davis was right. Keith's body was discovered a day later by hunters in a wheat field near his family home. He was also brutally murdered with sexual injury and multiple gunshot wounds to the face. The county coroner determined all the family members were killed within an hour of each other, but it's unknown who was killed first. The family car was still missing, but not for long. Keith's truck was found 10 miles south, covered in blood. You may think it was hidden deep in the woods or maybe even burned, but no. The killer just put the car on display in full view of the Benton Police Department. Next door was the Franklin County Courthouse. People were discussing the case but lacked a clear understanding of it. Despite the speculation, the reason behind the events remains unknown, and it seems unlikely that the truth will ever be uncovered. As stated by Broadway and confirmed by Wallace, who was familiar with all the theories and had access to the extensive case files. He believed that the reason behind the case could either be A, to send a clear message to someone, or B, it was extremely personal. Bill Reed, who grew up with Keith, says that people always spoke highly of him. Nearly 30 years later, Davis still feels the pain of losing his friends. Joanne, who will soon turn 84, hopes to find closure before she dies. No suspects were ever identified and few leads were found in the case. Years went by until Tommy Lynn Salles came along. He was convicted of killing 13-year-old Kayleen Harris in Del Rio, Texas in 1999. He claimed to have killed up to 70 people throughout the country, and authorities found some of his claims to be accurate. Agencies from every state wanted to know if Salles had ever visited their towns to clear cold cases. When Salles was asked about the Ina murders and the Dardeen family, he started confessing to having met Keith at a truck shop and then later at a pool hall. He claimed Keith invited him to dinner and a sexual rendezvous with both Dardeens. Salles offered to walk police through the crime scene, but he was already on death row in Texas. His confession was problematic, as it contained details only the investigators knew, such as the watermelon ceramics in the Dardeen home. Law enforcement officials believed Salles was the killer, but the Jefferson County State's attorney declined to charge him due to the inconsistencies in the evidence. Despite this, Bill Clutter of Investigating Innocence was convinced that Salles was the killer. After a jailhouse interview, Cells told Clutter that the victims were targeted, and if they searched the woods near the trailer, they would find a pile of beer cans where he had waited and watched. Clutter believed that Cells went into the trailer, took control of Ruby and the 3-year-old son, duct taped their hands, and waited for Keith to come home. However, there was no evidence. 30 detectives worked the case full time. They interviewed more than 100 people, tracked down more than 1,000 leads, but came up empty. Nearly 150 evidentiary items were labeled. Many have been sent to labs for multiple testing. DNA samples remain from the victims, but none from suspects. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office has passed on the case information to the FBI's unit that focuses on unresolved cases. The bodies being sexually mutilated prompted authorities to bring in a specialist on cults, and the case generated a large amount of documentation in the form of 20 binders labeled Dardeen. But despite all the efforts, the case remains unsolved to this day, with no leads or concrete evidence pointing to the identity of the killer or killers. Many theories have arisen over the years, with some speculating it was a cult-related killing or a crime of passion, while others believe it was a random act of violence. The only thing that is certain is that the brutal murder of the Dardeen family has left a lasting impact on the small town of Ina, and the memories of Keith, Elaine, Peter, and baby Casey will never be forgotten. The case now rests in the lap of Captain Bobby Wallace, who says, "To me, when you solve cold cases, it's going to be more from the evidence than the people. The people have lots of theories. Down the street from the Dardeen trailer is Bonnie's Cafe, where locals have never forgotten, and have plenty of theories. However, the captain remains dedicated to solving the case, and with the advancements in technology and the availability of DNA testing, he hopes that one day the truth will finally be uncovered. Until then, the case remains one of the most puzzling and mysterious murders in the history of Jefferson County, with questions that will linger and haunt those who knew the Dardeen family. To this day, the truth behind the Dardeen family murder remains a mystery, leaving a haunting and unanswered question that lingers in the minds of those who knew the family and those who seek justice for the victims. Despite the decades that have passed, the case continues to captivate and intrigue, as the quest for the truth behind the tragedy remains ongoing. The answer to what really happened to the Dardeen family may forever remain a mystery, but the search for the truth will continue, offering a glimmer of hope that one day the case will finally be solved.